Why are you here, Private Chamberlain?
I want to be in the Airborne, sir.
I don't believe you. Why are you here, Private Chamberlain?
I want to be in the Airborne, sir!
Good, then you have 50 minutes to reach the top of Scarp of Ambrose Hill, and I will be watching you. What are you waiting for, Private? Troops, I saw a bear here. Welcome to Update 63 for Foxhole. Welcome to the Airborne update. This update's too big for me to do a summary right at the start, so I'm just going to jump right in. Though first, reminder to like and subscribe, and share this with all the paratroopers and pilots out there, because there is a lot of information to go over. And also other reminder to keep YouTube restricted mode turned off, or else it hides like half of my stuff. Why? Who knows? Who cares? It's silly. On to the update. One of the first things you'll notice is that there are faction-specific ranks, both in name and abbreviation, for the Wardens and the Colonials. When you get promoted, you'll see an alert in the upper left corner under the notifications, and when you reach the distinguished ranks, that is to say the top ranks, there will be a global alert for when you reach it. As such, a few new highest ranks have been added, so that way everyone who had previously reached the highest rank can once again reach it and have the opportunity to gloat about it. If you want to see all the ranks for your faction, go into the F1 menu and hover over your rank. A list will be displayed with all the ranks of your faction. Among the first changes you'll notice is the completely reworked biomes. All of the old maps have received a fresh coat of paint. Foliage, trees, ground textures, all have been updated. Little game for the comments down below. I'm showing 5 clips here of different regions. Let's see how good your geolocation is, and try to name the hexes, or even the specific locations in each of these clips. Speaking of regions, the map might look a little different. With 10 whole new regions, well, you know what that means. Starting off in the gutter. Wow, great Warden region. Excellent. Good work, devs. Next up is Palpatine Berm. To the west of the berm is Logilarp Town. Northeast of that is Bienvenue à Paris, mon ami. Northeast of Paris is Strand. For the Collies, some of their new regions include Rock Type, Tyrant Foothills. East of that is Piper's Enclave.
You want into Diamond City, right?
Back west a little bit is Westra, and Ratchet is such a good relic base, why don't you have 2 of them for this region? And lastly, up north is Lycos, which is an island chain that has definitely no historical inspirations whatsoever. Moving on, you thought this was the Airborne update, but it is Naval Update 2.3.0. Let's talk about some boats. The first ship we'll talk about is the small Bellwether Mine Layer. This is a faction-neutral ship. It's got a crew of 2, a driver and a machine gunner facing the rear, more for self-defense than anything else. Once you've constructed this ship at the shipyard, you can then load it up with mines. Now, traditionally, you'd use the rudder lock mine, built at the ammunition factory segment of a facility. These mines can be mounted on the mine ramps at the back of the ship. You can then use these mines to build a set of new naval minefields. Pressing B to activate the build menu, and then selecting these minefields, you'll be able to place them down just like regular minefields, and then use the Bellwether's mine ramps to deploy the mines and construct the minefields. Now, you can use the older, heavier, and more damaging rudder lock mines, or you can use the new hull breaker mines. These won't do as much damage as the rudder lock mines, but they're cheaper and can be produced at regular factories instead of having to rely on a facility. Do note, though, that both of these types of minefields will require maintenance supplies. You can't just lay a minefield and let it sit there until the end of the war. You gotta upkeep these things. and we'll be coming back to the Rudderlock mine a little later on. And a new naval logistics vehicle, a BMS special, the Light Freighter. The Light Freighter is an unarmed cargo ship. It's got a driver's seat and a spotter seat. Its specialty is transporting crates of equipment from stockpile to stockpile. Think of this as a seaborne cargo container. But if you just need to transfer a couple of dozen crates over one region, or even within the same hex, the Light Freighter is the ship for you. Aside from transporting cargo from seaport to seaport, it can also transfer cargo from seaports to things like bluefin landing ships. So if there's an amphibious assault going on in the region, you can help to sustain it by resupplying it with the Light Freighter. This does also mean it could be more feasible to attack island maps and storm at a seaport rather than having to go for a beach, since now, if you're able to immediately repair the seaport, you'll be able to immediately resupply it from outside of the region with Light Freighters. Just do be careful, it is rather delicate. Now for some new entry-level ships. This new class of ship is the Infantry boat. You might also know it as a picket ship or a PT boat. These are constructed at the shipyard and aren't particularly expensive. For the Wardens, they get the 68A-4 Ronin Fathomer. It's got one 12.7 machine gun octo-barrel turret with anti-air capabilities and has a crew of 3, the gunner, the driver, and a spotter seat. As well, no more than 6 additional dismounts can board the vessel. And remember, if you want to target air targets, you'll want to press Shift plus S by default to point your gun towards the sky. For the Colonials, they get the K-81E Sombra. It comes with one 12.7 quad-barrel anti-aircraft capable turret, a crew of 2, a driver and a gunner, and about 2 to 3 dismounts in the back. These ships largely fill the same role, and they'll be crucial for any navy looking to avoid or deter air patrols. Moving up to a larger class are the Gunships, not to be confused with gunboats. For the Wardens, they get the Rinspear Orniteer class gunship. It's got a crew of 5, a driver, a spotter, the front gunner, which fires an RPG, and 2 side gunners that man twin 30mm cannons on the side. It packs a punch, and it's got lots of health. For the Colonials, they've got the Strider gunship. It's also got a crew of 5. The driver, the spotter, the rear gun, which fires 30mm rounds, 2 side-mounted 12.7mm machine guns, and a front swiveling 40mm cannon. A perfect vessel to go fishing with. Both of these ships are crafted at seaports. Last up on the list for small boats, we've got siege boats. One for each faction, but 2 different methods of operating. For the Wardens, they have the 81F-F Ronin Blackguard. Constructed at shipyards, this boat has a crew of 3. A driver, a spotter, and a gunner. This boat fires 250mm Fury shells, the ones that specialize in breaching bunkers. The boat has a stockpile that can carry up to 10 of these shells, plus 1 loaded in the tube, for 11 total. The Ronin Blackguard's cannon has a maximum range of 40 meters. For the Colonials, they field the Type B Lucian siege boat. This boat similarly has 3 crew seats. It's got a driver, a spotter, and the gunner in the rear turret. Its stockpile can carry up to 12 Shatter missiles, plus whatever's loaded on the missile rails. A barrage of these will make short work of any coastal defenses. The max range for the Strider's rockets is 50 meters. And one last note on boats, another new revamp has once again been added to the Colonial gunboat. Sorry, I mean the Colonial gunboat. the Colonial gunboat. No, I mean the Colonial gunboat. Here we go. The new Colonial Charon gunboat. It's got a brand new hull, lots of armor plating, 2 tripod gun mounts, and the front mortar cannon. Functionally the same as the previous iteration of gunboats, but hopefully more survivable with its new flashy interior. Also comes with a spotter and driver's seat. Let's switch over to some ground additions, and this first one will be more relevant as we continue to talk about these munitions. The old 20mm anti-tank rifle rounds have been renamed from 20mm to 14.5mm, and a new ammo called 20mm, which is anti-air machine gun ammo, has been introduced. This will be the standard ammo for most aircraft and some anti-aircraft guns. It should be a little easier getting used to, since 20mm ammo cannot be stored in your inventory. You have to carry it like a large item. Confusing as it is, it does make more sense, and to quote Jonathan Ferguson,
something quite ominous about a anti-tank muzzle coming into camera just by itself.
By NATO standards, it's not a cannon. It's 14.5mm, 20mm being the threshold for a cannon.
And believe me, if you think it's confusing now, it's even more confusing when you've been playing Foxhole for as long as I have. There's new AT pillbox options available to builders. First up, the old AT pillbox,
That it?
the one that fires anti-tank rounds, now targets armor and infantry. And now, there's a new infantry support gun pillbox, but it only targets vehicles. You can hop on top of it and hop inside of it, but it does have a pretty narrow field of view. With new aircraft comes new intel. Map intelligence has now been divided into ground intelligence and air intelligence, and for that, 2 different radios. The regular radio still functions the same, detects ground intelligence for buildings, infantry, and vehicles. For air, though, we have the new liaison transmitter. You can create the liaison transmitter at a factory. And on the subject of gathering intelligence, BMS Longhooks and Bluefins now gather air intelligence as well as ground intelligence at a range of about 350 meters. And speaking of air intelligence, introducing the new superstructure, the SC-3 Aerial Interceptor Array. It's a passive and active radar system that'll help you detect incoming aircraft, friendly and enemy. These are built at the small assembly station with the Advanced Structure Manufactory upgrade. After building the construction parts base and strapping that to a bunker, you can then build the aircraft radar parts and place that on top of the bunker afterwards. These will require a good amount of power, so be sure to stack your bunker with a lot of generator rooms. When you're seated inside of the array, you'll be given 3 variables: the azimuth, or compass bearing to the target, the distance, which follows your cursor in meters, and the pitch in degrees. Either by right-clicking and aiming, or using A and D, you can turn the array, since it has a little less than a 180 degrees directional field in front of it, where it will detect targets. While you're aiming in the array, you can also mouse wheel up and down to view higher or lower in the sky, depending on where the aircraft are. They reach about a third of the way across any given hex for intelligence, so you'll want to build these near your most critical facilities, or on the path where you think enemy bombers are likely to travel. You just clipped a friendly plane's tail off! Remember, knowing is half the battle, but for the other half, first up for the anti-air weaponry is the emplaced machine gun. Yep, it's the same as before, but now it's got an AA functionality to it. By pressing Shift and F, your character will crank the gun pitch up towards the sky, and you'll be able to target enemies that way. And while we're here, the binoculars now also have a very similar function when you press Shift and F at the same time. But now onto the flak guns. The Wardens fire the Leary AA-70 Bolas, and the Colonials counter with the DAE-5B Zeal. Both of these are anti-aircraft cannons. Both of them fire the new 950-70B anti-aircraft shell, which you can produce at factories. Just like with the EMGs, the flak cannons can fire at ground targets, but their real specialty is obviously air targets. Pressing Shift and F points the gun towards the sky and extends your view. You can then use the mouse wheel to zoom out, and you'll want to gain maximum visibility. Targeting planes is as simple as aiming for them and firing, though do note that flak guns have dispersion on them, so it'll be far more efficient to take down planes if you're working together as a flak battery rather than individual guns. Even still, a good battery or a lucky shot can cripple a bomber's wing or engine, sending it careening to the ground. Both the Warden and Colonial flak cannons can be produced at your local construction yard. Before taking off, let's keep ourselves grounded for just a second and discuss the airfields. This is what your average airfield will look like, minus all the wrecked planes. There's 3 main components to it. There's the aircraft depot, the aircraft hangar, and the aircraft runway. The aircraft runway is that big strip on the ground that airplanes will take off from. The runway is crucial as that's what will allow larger aircraft, like fighters and bombers, to gain enough speed to take off. This runway can be destroyed through heavy bombardment. It can be built up to Tier 1 using BMATs, and up to Tier 2 using concrete. Tier 2 will be required for the largest of the aircraft. Next up is the aircraft hangar. This is a small-scale aircraft production center. Think of this structure as a vehicle garage, but for aircraft. At present, it's used solely for constructing scout planes. And the third main structure is the aircraft depot. Think of this as a seaport, but for aircraft. Here, you can stockpile supplies, packaged supplies, ground vehicles, and aircraft frames. Now that you're familiar with the airfield, let's talk about actually producing the aircraft. To produce the frames for these aircraft, you'll need to start with a large assembly station at your facility. Once that's been built, upgrade it to the aircraft assembly. This will give you access to all of your faction's aircraft, minus the scout plane. Once you've decided on your aircraft of choice and gathered the resources necessary for it, begin producing an order of that aircraft. Once the order is complete, package the aircraft on the large assembly station, bring it over to an aircraft depot with a crane. Hopefully your facility is not too far away, so that will make it a lot easier. There's usually enough space around an airfield for 1 or 2 of these types of factories, by the way. And then submit your newly built aircraft frame to the stockpile by submitting the loading area equipment. You'll see it appear in the stockpile, public or private, but as you're waiting in queue to start withdrawing your aircraft, be sure that you unpack any private stockpile aircraft to public stockpile in order to withdraw it. If you try to withdraw it from the private storage, it will appear disassembled on the loading pads where you submitted it. You have to withdraw it from a public stockpile in order to have it flight ready. Once you've withdrawn it, go up to the aircraft and see which parts you need to complete it. All aircraft have different part requirements, but they all consist of a certain amount of engines and mechanical parts. And these parts are produced at the new Aircraft Maintenance Factory. This is a facility that produces aircraft engines and aircraft mechanical parts. Do note that there are large and small mechanical parts and engine parts depending on the size of your aircraft. This is also the facility where you could submit damaged aircraft parts if you've recovered them from a crashed aircraft, and they'll be far cheaper to produce than producing brand new ones. Once you've gone ahead and gotten all the parts you need for your aircraft, bring either a small, light gauge train over and load up all your parts, or use a heavy truck with a trailer to bring the parts to the aircraft itself. Once your aircraft has all of its parts installed and the aircraft is fueled up, it's ready for takeoff. A few other things before we leave the ground. First off is weather. Depending on the weather in a region, there may be different cloud formations and visibility while you're flying. Flying at night during a snowstorm is definitely not recommended. Bombing ships during the daytime in clear skies makes things a lot easier, and landing during a thunderstorm is downright dangerous. So pick your times to fly wisely. For those wondering how border travels work with air vehicles, it's pretty similar to ground vehicles. When you fly close to the border, you'll enter the no-drop zone. As the name suggests, you can't drop paratroopers here. If your plane slams into the invisible wall border, you'll be gently pushed away, so hopefully you shouldn't crash as a result. Just like transporting with a vehicle, you'll see a prompt in the upper left corner if you wish to travel. You will have a countdown timer, however, so you can't linger in the border zone. You either have to cross or turn around, or face the consequences. If a slot in the region you're seeking to travel to is open, you'll be teleported immediately. There's no countdown timers for planes. However, if the hex is full, a spot will be reserved for you, and you can safely return to your region and hover around until a spot opens up. Or even fly back to your airbase and land. Friendly reminder, regular vehicles also don't have to sit by the border. You can just go off and do something else until a slot is available. Though for both, you will have to return to the border in order to complete the travel. While we're on the subject of border travel, there's now been border queuing for groups in vehicles. If a destination region is full and requires queuing, the driver of the vehicle can initiate the queuing and travel for all of the passengers in that vehicle, rather than everyone having to queue up individually. Here goes nothing.
Jesus! Tell Legendary to get him out of there! Jesus Christ!
Before I discuss the planes, let's discuss flight controls. This will be a quick speedrun guide. If you want a more in-depth guide, maybe see Freerick, because I've heard he's working on one. Changing your pitch. If you want to pitch your airplane up, it's S by default. And to pitch it down, it's W by default. To bank your aircraft left, it's A, and to bank it right, it's D. For a rudder turn, it's a little weird, but you used the left arrow key or the right arrow key to turn your plane right or left. For the aircraft HUD, whilst you're on the ground, flight controls will be displayed in the top right. On the bottom left, you'll have your altitude, speed gauge, and thrust, although thrust will only appear when you're on the ground. Back in the top right, you've got your landing gear display, your vertical speed indicator, and your compass bearing. In order to accelerate the plane, you mouse wheel up, decelerate it, it's mouse wheel down, and to hit the wheel brakes, you press spacebar. If you mouse wheel down and spacebar at the same time, you'll reverse your plane and combine that with either A or D, and you'll turn your plane in reverse. Now let's head into the air. Once you're in the air, to raise your landing gear, you press F. Controls should be familiar for combat. Right-click is the aim, although you can steer the airplane while right-clicking. It'll simply go towards where you're aiming at. If you combine right-clicking whilst pressing Shift, you'll go into a dive, and this actually might be the preferred mode for doing dogfights, as you'll be able to very carefully track your target whilst descending onto them. Going back to the airfield, press F to lower your landing gear, and you'll want to throttle down as you come into the runway. Don't nosedive straight into the ground, but definitely pitch your nose towards the runway surface, and only let up at the last second to perform a smooth landing. It'll take some practice, and if you want to get some practice without damaging an expensive aircraft, I highly recommend the following plane. The first aircraft on the list, and probably the most common, is the scout planes. Both the Colonial and Warden scout planes can be built at the smaller aircraft hangar for a moderate amount of RMATs, and they can be fueled with either diesel or petrol. For the Wardens, they field the Luminary Mark IV Herald. It's got a crew of 2, the pilot, who controls the aircraft and fires the forward-facing 20mm machine gun, and the secondary navigator C, who will most likely be the one dealing with the map, communicating with the rest of the team, and for the Wardens, fires the new Quillback torpedoes. These are mini torpedoes crafted at your standard factory. You can then store 4 on the plane whilst mounting 2 underneath the wings and fire them off in quick succession at naval targets. You have to fly relatively low, and you can only aim at naval targets. You can't just do direct drops on land targets with these torpedoes. And do be careful, scout planes are pretty delicate. For the Colonials, they come with the A51 Venti Daedalus. This is very similar to the Warden scout plane. It comes with 2 crew, the pilot, who controls the plane and fires the forward-facing 20mm machine gun, and the navigator and weapons officer, who deals with the recon role, but also uses, similarly to the Bellwether, the hull breaker mines. Now this differs from the Warden scout plane. These mines can be dropped anywhere on any body of water to lay a trap for oncoming vessels, or can be used in a direct attack role, dropping them directly onto enemy vessels, or even ground targets. Not nearly as effective, but still some damage can be done. 2 other important notes for scout planes. 1, you cannot bring any piece of equipment other than your uniform on board the scout plane. These things need to travel light. And 2, unlike the rest of the planes we'll be talking about in this list, you do not need any special uniform requirements in order to fly them. Your default uniform will suffice. Now let's take a look at some of those shiny new uniforms. For the Wardens, you've got the Aviator's Raiment, and for the Colonials, the Loadsman Lorica. Both uniforms come with 5 backpack slots, the ability to stack gas mask filters, the ability to stack bandages and blood plasma, and a high chance of not being detected by enemy intelligence, especially useful if you're down behind enemy lines. Which reminds me, at time of recording, I still need to actually watch that movie. You should also note that you will require these uniforms in order to fly planes other than the scout aircraft. Pilot's uniform, paratrooper uniform, as well as the paratrooper's ruck will be created at the infantry kit factory. Next on the list are the fighters. These will be the primary tools for achieving air dominance. Both fighters are produced at facilities and then stored in the aircraft depot. They need to be withdrawn from it and supplied with facility-made small aircraft engine parts and small aircraft mechanical parts. And they take heavy oil as fuel. For the Wardens, they're taking off with the Luminary Mark II Harbinger. This aircraft comes with 20mm cannons mounted on the wings and a 14.5mm gun pod mounted below the aircraft. Be sure to press Shift and F to switch between the weapons. For the Colonials, they've got the Toxit 902 Blind Silver. It comes with 20mm cannons mounted in the wings and a crew of 1. Bomber going down. The next two are more specialized aircraft. You've got the dive bomber and the torpedo bomber. Both aircraft need to be fabricated at facilities and deployed from depots. They both use small engine parts and small mechanical parts, and take heavy oil as fuel. For the dive bomber, there's also a specialized bomb known as the 912 Shrike round. And this is what the Colonials will be taking into battle. This is the Mergo 4 Myrmidon. It comes with 2 seats, one for the driver, who flies the plane and launches the bomb, and one for the gunner, who mans a 12.7mm machine gun at the rear, and also activates the air brakes, or air flaps. These air flaps slow the speed of the plane down considerably, allowing you to get precise hits on your targets, which is good since the Shrike rounds should do more damage against vehicle systems rather than the vehicle's overall health itself. So think less about destroying tanks or sinking ships, and more about disabling tracks or knocking out turrets. There will be a pretty high communications requirement for this aircraft, but once your pilot and your gunner get really good at it, you can pull some pretty awesome maneuvers. The Wardens respond with the M925 Austringer Man-O-War. Its primary armaments is the Moray torpedo, same as a submarine. Bring up a trailer or a small gauge train with some torpedoes loaded on it. Make sure both are unlocked so you can actually transfer the torpedoes. And then, just like a submarine, grab a wrench to mount and arm the torpedoes on the side of the plane. Note that you can carry an extra torpedo in the plane's inventory, but that's not really going to matter since only the ones on the side will be viable in combat until you can land and rearm. Another tip is not to engage the torpedoes at a high angle, or else they will just detonate on the surface of the water. Instead, you'll want to come in low and maybe even slow down, since you'll need to pull up to have your tail not strike the target that you're aiming for. For the Man-O-War, it's the pilot who launches the torpedoes, and the gunner provides defense with a 12.7mm machine gun. Last but not least, the heavy hitters, the bombers. These are the largest aircraft in the game, and they pack a punch. They'll need to be produced at facilities, then submitted to aircraft depots, then assembled using large engine parts and large mechanical parts. Special to the bombers is the new Mark II Raidbreaker high-explosive bombs. You'll need your ground crews to load these up individually before takeoff. For the Colonials, their bomber is the V-1 Zikalia. It's described as a heavy bomber, having a pilot to fly the aircraft, 3 gunner positions that use 12.7mm machine gun ammo, one at the front, one at the rear, and one on top, and the bombardier position, who controls the opening of the bomb bay doors, and is there to drop the payload when you're over the target. The Zikalia carries 35 bombs total. And as for the pilot, just remember to put your gears up and down during takeoff and landing sequences. The Wardens respond with the Tulka P4 Welkenrive. This is described as a light bomber, as it has 1 fewer gunner positions, carries 35 bombs total. The pilot flies the aircraft. The 2 gunner seats use 12.7mm machine gun ammo and are located at the top and rear of the aircraft. And the bombardier, as per usual, controls the bomb bay doors and the payload delivery. The P4 also has its wheels fixed, so you don't need to worry about raising and lowering them during landing and takeoff sequences. Bombs depleted. If you're looking to jump out of rather than pilot a plane, for the Colonials, you'll need the Oster's harness, and the Wardens, the Cloud Runner's vesture. Both of these come with 5 backpack slots. The Paratrooper uniforms, similar to the Scout uniforms, also have a high chance of not being detected by enemy intelligence. Along with the pilot uniforms, these Paratrooper uniforms are the only ones that can equip a parachute backpack. From the moment you jump out of the plane, you will have a 30-minute timer where you do not show up on any map intelligence at all. The Paratrooper ruck can be created at the Infantry kit facility. Next is the Paratrooper transport aircraft. I hope you've got your band of brothers and others ready for this one. Like the rest of the large aircraft, it needs to be constructed at a factory and submitted to an aircraft depot before being pulled. Large engine parts, as well as large mechanical parts, need to be submitted to it in order for it to be fully operational, and needs to be fueled using heavy oil. For the Wardens, they're lifting up the Rinspear Mark I Zealot. This transport aircraft has a crew of 3, a pilot, who flies the plane, a co-pilot, who raises and lowers the ramps at the rear for paratroopers to drop out of, and the top rear-facing gunner, who uses a 12.7mm machine gun. Once the ramps are down, as long as the paratroopers have their parachute backpacks equipped, their static lines should trigger the parachutes automatically as they step out of the plane. For the Colonials, they've got the V-5B Pegasus. The plane has a crew of 3, a pilot who flies the plane, a co-pilot who activates the ramp at the rear, and the top gunner for defense with the 12.7mm machine gun. The Colonial paratrooper aircraft also comes with a secondary advantage of being able to land and take off from water. Both paratrooper aircraft have 12 seats in the back for paratroopers to use. You can technically exceed this number of seats, however, during heavy banks and turns, paratroopers who are standing up will be forced back into their seats. Anyone exceeding this capacity runs the risk of falling out of the aircraft, so it's highly advised not to do that. Transport aircraft can also take a certain amount of item crates with them. They can't drop them out of the back of the aircraft, they're more for transporting from one airfield to another, or to forward supply bases if there's an airfield nearby, or heck, even if there isn't. But if you're in desperate need of supplies at a forward base, maybe this really is the best way to go about it. And the last note is to make sure you communicate with your paratroopers at what height they'll be jumping from. If they're over encumbered, or if you're flying too low, they won't make the drop. You better make that landing good. There is one last class of ship and aircraft that I've left for the very end. Crafted at dry docks, the new largest ships are available in the form of aircraft carriers. Well, classified as aircraft carriers. It's really a seaplane tender, but don't worry about it. For the Wardens, they bring forth Mercy. It's got a crew of 12, not including the aircraft it can carry, nor the marine detachment that will certainly go along with it. It's got 2 side-mounted 12.7mm machine guns and 2 20mm side-mounted cannons. One person steers the ship in the driver's seat, one person can act as a spotter. The 12.7mm machine guns have both a ground target mode, and if you press Shift and F at the same time, it converts it into an anti-air roll. The 20mm cannons on the side likewise do the same, having a ground fire roll and an anti-air fire roll. Munition racks on the lower decks can be used to house 20mm ammo crates. Instead of turrets like the Callahan, the Mercy's turret slots function as catapult operators for the aircraft. These operators can extend and retract the catapult systems. At the rear of the ship is the stockpile and spawn point. In the middle front section of the ship, you've got the engine room, which you can use a wrench to change the speed of the ship. And beside them, you've got the crane operators. These are the seats for picking up seaplanes out of the water. They've got a pretty long range too, so you don't have to park directly next to the ship. You can then lower these planes onto the catapult slots. As you lower them, you'll be given the Mercy's inventory, its stockpile, but also the plane's inventory as well. Just be sure not to exit this menu if you aim to interact with the plane, or else that option might disappear. Arguably, the Mercy's key role is as a refit and refuel carrier for as many seaplanes as you can safely fly alongside you. From the crane seat, you can go into the ship's inventory, and there's an option to repair small nearby aircraft. This isn't just for the aircraft you're looking at, this is for all small and nearby aircraft within a close range of the ship, the same way as a vehicle garage. If the plane has a damaged part, like for example this wing, lower the plane onto one of the catapults. Go into the plane's inventory and remove the damaged part. Then you can go into the ship's secondary inventory and replace that part with a brand new one. So there's no need to return to an airfield for Warden seaplanes. Now the scout plane counts as a seaplane, but there's one last specialized aircraft for the Mercy. This new seaplane fighter is the Tulka I-1.9 White Raven. It comes with 3 20mm cannons instead of the usual 2 for a fighter, and it's piloted by a single crew member. Like all the other advanced fighters, You construct it at a facility, submit it to a depot, and pull it and strap a small aircraft engine part to it and a couple of small aircraft mechanical parts to it. Although it's described as a light fighter, I would actually be tempted to call it some sort of interceptor, as its high damage and high maneuverability makes it great for intercepting targets en route to friendly bases or ships, though its top speed does leave a little to be desired. One of its other advantages is that it's a seaplane, meaning that it can land anywhere on water, and thus also be picked up by the Mercy. Just be careful. You want to approach the water at a low speed. Even something just a little too high will cause you to flip. It might take a more experienced pilot for this one. Once again, because of its high maneuverability, it's less of a be careful if this thing is on your back, and more of a be careful if you're on its back. Lastly, welcome the King of the Seas. This is the Poseidon. The Colonials bring forth the Poseidon aircraft carrier. It's got a crew of about 8, though realistically you'll want more, plus your pilots and marines complement. It's got 4 20mm anti-aircraft cannons for self-defense, and can load a complement of either fighters, dive bombers, or scout planes. It certainly has a lot of versatility, though it'll require a well-trained crew in order to function optimally. The anchor is located towards the front of the flight deck. The helmsman sits by the control tower, and from there pilots the ship. Next to them, on the stairs, just below the automated defense cannon, is the spotter seat, to be on the lookout for friendly and enemy aircraft. Surrounding the tower, and across the flight deck from the tower, are the 4 20mm machine guns. Just like with the other large ships, these have a ground fire and anti-air fire mode to deter or stop enemy aircraft. On the lower deck, at the fore of the ship, you've got your crew quarters. This is where you can set your spawn and deposit items into the ship's stockpile. One room back, in the first of its 2 midsections, is the first engine room. Next room down, in the midship as well, is the second engine room plus the aircraft parts storage, as well as the ammo racks for things like 20mm rounds. The aft of the ship is the hangar section. This is where the large aircraft elevator is located. Think of this just like the aircraft depots at airfields. You can pull aircraft frames from here, and using the control seat, you can assemble the aircraft parts onto the frame. Once all the parts are assembled, ammo loaded, and fueled up, you can then use the lever located on the platform itself and initiate your takeoff sequence. Do be careful with the elevator. It will crush people if they are under it. To stow an airplane back in the ship, simply land, and do be careful about how you land. Use the repair aircraft button located in the elevator control seat. Remove all the parts from the aircraft frame and store them in the ship's inventory. And then you can store the aircraft frame itself. Whilst anchored, carriers will gather air and ground intelligence up to 350 meters away and 250 whilst unanchored. Both carriers, the Poseidon and the Mercy, are built at dry docks. Staying on the subject of large ships, multi-barreled turrets can now reload multiple shells at once. So instead of having to reload each shell individually, someone could just load you up with your 2 or your 3, and you reload them both at the same time. If you compare it to single loading, it's much faster overall, so this will require extra communication with your loader. Large leaks will no longer continue to flood a compartment when it's patched. So now you can fully repair large leaks. However, you should be treating them like tank armor now, since if you take damage on that same compartment, the large leak has a chance to reopen. Subsystems on large ships, like turrets, can now be repaired with metal beams by submitting the beams to the turret's interaction area. The chance to disable a turret subsystem, though, has been slightly increased. Cross-ocean border travel has been disabled. With the expansion of the map and the addition of new boats, the east and west coasts will once again be separated. Fuel gauges, not just for planes but for all vehicles, now change color depending on how full it is. There's a new regional text chat for air communications, and if you type /A in the chat, you'll quickly swap over. Some balance changes include large ship armor piercing damage mitigation has been reduced from 93% to 60%. For the Colonial Titan battleship, 120mm turret reload time has increased from 2 to 4 seconds. The 150mm turret reload time has increased from 2 to 6 seconds. The 40mm turrets have been converted to 68mm turrets. For the Warden Callahan class battleship, the 120 and 150mm turrets have had their reload times increased from 3 to 6 seconds. For the Conqueror class destroyer, the 120mm turret reload time has increased from 2 to 4 seconds, and the bow guns have been converted from 40mm to 68mm. The Black Steel 120mm turret reload time has increased from 2 to 2.2 seconds. The Naki Warden submarine has had its 40mm turret converted into a 68mm turret. The 74B-1 Ronin gunship turn speed has been improved slightly. The BMS Aquatipper and BMS Ironship armor-piercing damage mitigation has been reduced from 50 down to 0%. Dry dock health has been increased from 4,250 to 4,650. The ballistic rocket health has been increased from 3,600 to 5,000. And the rocket platform health has been increased from 3,600 to 5,000. For artillery garrisons, at Tier 1, their retaliation range has been reduced from 175 to 150, and at Tier 2 has had their range reduced from 600 down to 200 meters. All tiers have had their structural integrity improved by 5%. For the anti-tank pillboxes, their health has been reduced from 950 down to 800, and their repair cost has been reduced from 85 to 75. There's been some improved speed to the scout vehicles while they are encumbered, so they maintain good off-roading capabilities. The rare alloy requirement for the King Jester Mark I-1 and the 40-250 Electo heavy cannons have been eliminated. Both the Fury Shell and Shatter missiles for breaching have been made available to both factions with their new vehicles. Shatter missile crate capacity increased from 1 to 5. The Alto Storm Rifle 24, that's the one with the select fire mode, has had its weight reduced from 215 down to 200, and its single fire mode has had its max range increased from 21 to 25, and its max reachability increased from 26 to 35 meters. The Katara Model 2 ammo capacity has increased from 30 to 40. The Booker Storm Rifle, the burst fire one, has had its ammo capacity reduced from 36 down to 30, and its maximum inaccuracy increased to 11%, and its stagger bonus was removed. The Dusk Rifle shouldering time has been reduced from 1 down to 0.7 seconds. The Tempest Cannon RA2 rare alloy cost has been reduced from 100 down to 35. The Storm Cannon rare alloy cost has been reduced from 40 down to 20. Alligator charges have been converted into a large item, with their damage being increased from 400 to 550. The weight for the Alligator has been greatly reduced, and it now destroys wrenchable structures instantly. Also, an option I forgot to tell you guys about is all of those green and red lines that you see below aircraft have an option you can change in the settings menu to make them more or less transparent, in case you find them annoying, or in case you can't see them well enough. There were some other bug fixes, but I'll save that for the patch notes down below. And, reminder that, especially with the Airborne update, there's been a lot of last-minute changes. If there's any major changes I missed, please write them down in the comments below, and I will pin them in a pinned comment at the top of the comment section. Oh, one other thing. There is now a supporters edition of Foxhole available on Steam. It comes with all of the things you see here on screen, and I'm not going to detail it any further because this update video is already long enough. Okay, that's another really long update video in the books. As a reminder, this August will be the decade-long mark that I've been doing these update videos. And I just want to say another big thank you to everyone who supported me along the way. I really do appreciate it, even if this platform is less than kind as of lately when putting my content out there. So just as another reminder, I've been posting every Thursday and every Sunday very consistently for the last more than decade at this point. A big shout out to everyone in the community who helped me filming the scenes for this update video. Shoutouts to JHTZZ, Alex Chamberlain, and Big Bear Berg for their line readings for some of the little skits in this update video. And remember, I don't really do a Patreon or that kind of thing. I just support the production of this content through YouTube ads and YouTube Premium, and of course, through your guys' help, by helping to like, share, and subscribe, and I will see you in the skies. Good luck, lace up those jump boots, and stay in your cockpits. Bear out.